Mental health. When these two words are brought up, people begin to feel uncomfortable. Mental health has become something taboo that people don't particularly like to bring up. This has to come to an end. People have to be comfortable and be allowed access to get the help they need if they do suffer from any mental illness. For this reason, our group decided to focus on the issue of mental health on campus. Our compelling question was, should Loyola do more to support the social and emotional well-being of its students? Our supporting questions were, what does Loyola provide for the emotional well-being of its students? Why don't we have a full-time psychologist dedicated to our campus? Do counselors and teachers receive an adequate amount of training to handle social and emotional situations?
While looking at the 2016-2017 SARC report from the school, we noticed that there was just 0.5 of a psychologist available for the 2,303 students attending Loyola High School. This caught our attention because depression is the leading mental illness in adolescents, and suicide is the third leading cause of death in 15 to 19-year-olds, according to the World Health Organization. In the school's 2015 to 2016 senior exit survey, we found that less than 50% of students feel that the counselors provided the social emotional support they needed. This emphasizes the lack of support and resources provided for the student population, thus leading us to our supporting question of, why don't we have a full-time psychologist?
In the survey we sent out to the school, 74.2% of the 163 students surveyed chose the answer no to the question, do you believe your school provides enough social and emotional support? This then brings us to one of our supporting questions. What does Loyola provide for the emotional well-being of its students? In our interview with Mr. Jensen, we found out that our school has 2 psychologists that deal with a lot of the academic components and assessments for our special ed populations, and 1 social worker that is available to us 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. He also commented on how counselors are trained to handle social and emotional situations, but he believes it's not enough. Answering our supporting question of, do counselors and teachers receive an adequate amount of training to handle social and emotional situations?
Do you believe your school provides enough social and emotional support?
No.
No, I do not.
I do not believe that.
Do you know if your school has a psychologist?
No.
No.
I did not.
Is there an adult on campus that you trust?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Is this trusted adult a teacher?
Yes.
Yeah, teacher.
Yes.
Do you feel that your school cares more about your academics than your mental health?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should promote that there's therapists on campus so students can go towards it and find support.
In an interview that we had with Chung, she talked about our counselors being trained on providing emotional support. Ms. Chung brought up sharing a social worker with Ball Junior High, and she added that as of now we don't have a social worker per school site, but really if you look at the needs which vary, it would be great to have somebody here full time. She adds that it would be nice to talk to students about their well-being, but counselors are so involved with academics that it's great to have a social worker that gets to mainly focus on mental health with students. She also commented on the fact that the lack of a full-time psychologist stems from the issue with funding and our school budget. Although we have our counselors that are willing to meet with us, there is sometimes a slight awkwardness when you try to talk about your problems and that Apex class you need to take. Ignoring students' mental health affects grades and could cause fights, which lead to suspension. Emotional and behavioral problems can lead to office discipline, school avoidance, suspension, and being left back. This could lead to future issues such as a lower employment rate and more people in prisons, since high school dropouts are 63 times more likely to be jailed than 4-year college graduates. As Mr. Jensen said in our interview, if a student is not well mentally, then they won't do well in the classroom environment. Students are at school most of their time, so if they can't get help at school, then they aren't receiving much help anywhere else.
Currently, NAMI, an organization trying to advocate for school-based mental health services, is trying to provide teachers with the training necessary to help more students with their emotional needs. Currently, there is also an act called the Mental Health Service for Students Act, which gives grants up to $1 million to schools. By contributing this grant to all 35 schools in the 32nd District in California, it actually helped with bringing academics up and has kept the high school graduation rate at 73.2%, while in Anaheim the graduation rate is a mere 64.6%. What we currently have to offer on campus is a social worker on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as well as a psychologist that is available 5 days a week. The social worker is mainly here to help us with any emotional needs, while the psychologist is mainly for the special needs students, but she has an open door policy to help all students. With our survey, we discovered that most students didn't know our school had a social worker or psychologist, as well as where they could find them. Not knowing these important things about our school brings an issue with students not having the resources needed for their emotional and social well-being. Although counselors are trained, there is an awkwardness when you go to your counselor to talk about an issue and then later on being called up to have academic checks.
For our level 1 action, we decided to reply to a Twitter page at Mind Charity explaining the task we decided to take on to break the stigma against mental illness. For our level 2 action, we emailed Jordan Brandman, city councilman and a former trustee of the Anaheim Union High School District, explaining the importance of having an adequate amount of mental health services on campus for students, considering that depression is the leading mental illness in adolescents. Additionally, we presented in Mr. Pastis' room and welcomed students to join us during lunch for a meeting about mental health. We explained what mental health is and things that helped us stay emotionally stable. We had a genuine conversation and connection with the students, informing them about what Loera has to offer to support their social, emotional well-being. We also invited our school psychologist to give us some tips about anxiety, depression, etc., which was eye-opening to several students. For our level 3 action, we made infographics and posted them around the school in hopes of having the students learn tips on how to manage stress and anxiety. We also put up an infographic with the social workers and psychologists' name and contact information to raise awareness of their presence on campus.
Overall, by completing these actions, we hope that both students and teachers will be able to talk about mental health openly and that they will be informed of the resources the school offers.